I'm Davis.
And I'm Andy.
Welcome to another episode of Game Grazers Discuss. How you doing today, Andy?
I'm alright, Davis. How about you?
I'm alright. So today's question comes from my good friend Shazel.
Okay.
And he asks, how do you feel about minority representation in video games? Do you think it's important? Does it even matter? Is representation pandering?
That's kind of a provocative question.
I definitely think it's a very provocative question, and it's kind of, it has a very interesting history to it, I kind of think. So I feel that there's a certain area of minority representation is kind of covered when you have character creation, but it also isn't, because when you have character creation, it's very rare that the story and gameplay kind of take those things into account.
Right, you're just kind of like a blank slate that they get to scribble you on. And,
yeah, it's sort of cosmetic. And on the other hand, when you actually do have characters, I kind of think that it's sort of an area where they are definitely failing. Stories that are created around characters. Yeah, I cannot tell you, just look how many, buzz cut white dudes are heroes in games.
Starting with Doom.
Heck, even starting with Wolfenstein.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's when they had the little icon of the
little
army dude.
Army dude down there, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird because it seemed like at first we were off to a really great start. I mean, obviously the first major female game character was Miss Pac-Man. Perhaps a bit tropish, just Pac-Man with a bow.
Yeah.
But when you think about badass video game women, first one probably to come to mind is the first badass video game woman, which was Samus, which was a surprise to everyone when it came out.
Yep, that was the twist.
And it was sort of like, man, we're doing good on representation to start with, and then it all just kind of went downhill from there.
I think of a really bad representation of African Americans from the Genesis classic DJ Boy, which almost was racist in how they portrayed African Americans. It was actually kind of sad. That was kind of a step back.
Well, how about Native Americans in Custer's Revenge?
Ooh. Wait a second, that's the one with the naked Custer running with the
raping
boner.
him, yeah. So
yeah, that's a bad one.
Don't ever play that one. That just no.
And even now, today, so you mentioned the character creation. So if you have Fallout and you create a character who doesn't have to be white, whether you're on the male or female side, it's the same voice actor.
Yeah.
Right. And so you could read into that a little bit. I mean, understandably, they're not going to record, 4 different male tracks, 4 different female tracks worth of voice work. But
yeah, it's even one of my all-time favorite female characters, which is still customizable, is FemShep from Mass Effect. But even that's sort of not really what you think it is, because it's the same dialogue written for male Shepard and female Shepard. There's no real difference between the two. And I think male Shepard comes across as really boring because he's just your standard token space military guy. But then when you put FemShep in that role, it's just oh man, she's completely badass because she's like a dude, because that's what the game requires of her. And the game never makes any point of her gender outside of the romances.
Yeah.
You never encounter any societal problems because you're playing a female character. Nothing about the experience is any different than male Shepard because of that choice.
So does that make it kind of pandering almost, because they're trying to cover that base but kind of half-assed?
I don't necessarily think so, but I think it's sort of an interesting way to look at it, because it kind of provides a little bit of an indictment on the concept of what makes a strong female character. Is it just when a female does things guys do? I don't think FemShep is pandering, I think it was just in that standard vein of making customizable characters of, you kind of need a blank avatar to project onto for the player. And, some people want to play guys and some people want to play girls, and I think you need that option is presented. It's kind of a shame when you can have that level of things, but obviously the technology's not there to have those choices impact your gameplay.
Yeah. I was also thinking about a game like Saints Row, where you can, it's extremely dynamic in that you can create any race, any sex. You can couple up any voice work with that your particular choice. So you can make a transgendered character. You can make some white guy that talks like he's from the west side of Chicago. You can. It's a real dynamic thing, and to me that feels like that's at least trying to give you that feeling of, hey, I created this character. I've got ownership of it.
Yeah. And I don't think there's much to me when you say like is something is pandering. I think pandering's like if you had a game and the game story explicitly like, look, we have a transgender character. Look, isn't we awesome? Are we progressive? Like that's totally pandering. When you have to take the time to point it out instead of just naturally let it be part of the experience. Sort of to veer off topic, like on the TV show The Flash in season 1, there are two things that stand out. There's an interracial relationship between two characters, and the police chief of the precinct where they work at is gay. And they never explicitly are like, oh, look at this, we have a gay character who's chief of police. Like, it's just like, oh, look, they're at the hospital. Oh, look, his boyfriend is dying and he needs to go in there and see him. They're like, oh, okay. Like, they never, like, rub it in your face at any time about either of those two things. Like, that is how you handle proper representation, I think. When you don't call attention to it, just you let it exist. And then if people go, oh, wait, I didn't even notice that. I think you're doing something correctly, and it still gives people that. And I don't... So when you have token characters, I think that's also pandering.
Yeah, okay, so Fallout's got a good example of that. One of the people in one of the shops, it touched on a person that's a robot, an Assaultron who's actually transgendered, and in my mind that was pandering because you walk up to it and you start talking to it, and they just kind of lay it all out there to you. You know, it's not like real subtle. It's like it talks about its inner conflict, and you're like, whoa, you're like a robot, and I just walked into the shop off the wasteland, and that felt very pandering to me.
Yeah, it's just when it's just like in your face.
Yeah.
Without context.
A game series that's pretty sensitive about that would be like Dragon Age, I think.
Yeah.
Which, ironically enough, is written, I believe, by a woman. But I felt like they dealt with mostly sexuality and relationships between people in a much more sensitive way. But the thing is in a game like Dragon Age, being the fantasy setting, they don't deal much in terms of interracial issues because it's all, white people and dwarfs and Quinari and all the different races and stuff.
Yeah, it's sort of like I can see like the race not being a thing for humans in Mass Effect when you have an intergalactic society and you have Asari and Turians and Krogan and Solarians, and then you view people more of the species they belong to. Yeah. And you stop seeing skin color within your own race because, oh look, there's something else that's different.
Let's go way back. Did you ever play the game Jungle Hunt?
No, I don't think I've ever even heard of it.
Oh, okay. It's kind of I believe it was Konami or something. But, so given it takes place supposedly somewhere in the jungle, but at one point you have to fight the locals, and though they aren't necessarily, obviously the graphics are so poor, you can't pick out any certain racial, characteristics, but they kind of play up the whole, oh, these are African natives with their massive masks on and they're gonna kill you kind of thing. Yeah. Another series, ironically enough, would be like Resident Evil, I think. So when you think of Resident Evil 4, they were very like, it's in some Spanish speaking part of the world, which I always thought was Spain. Maybe they said otherwise in the game, I can't remember. And they kind of made them into simpletons. Yeah. And that I felt was kind of talking down to...
Did they do the same thing in Resident Evil 5 with like an African?
Exactly, that was my next point. And that I even felt a little bit more creeped out by.
Yeah, I think, the thing with zombie games, especially like those, like, zombies are fodder. You don't care what their ethnicity is because they're dead.
Well, it gets
they're not fodder and they're not zombies in those games.
Exactly.
They're deranged humans. Yep. So I'm like, so you go into this like African town and you just start mowing people down because they're just crazed people. I think that's sort of, it's not good.
Also Dead Island, which I don't know, you've probably never played it first person in zombies. But in the first game you had 4 character plot lines you could follow. including an Asian woman and an African American man. And I'm still kind of torn on, did they do it to kind of cover demographics, or did they do it because they were trying to get a point across? They were trying to get kind of like, I felt like a spectrum of stories going, but it just came off as mildly racist to me.
I think that's the problem is, I think one of the major issues is what is apparently the core demographic. It's older white guys like you and me.
Yeah.
And businesses will cater to that audience because apparently white guys like us like male power fantasies.
I fantasize about a lot of things, including power.
I don't know where I fall, but because I'm like, no, I like to solve puzzles and beat jumping meat around death traps.
I'm kind of finding it ironic that some Japanese developed games, they tend to put European, features on their characters. Like the exception to that, I think, would be Persona, where they kind of maintain that sort of Japanese look and they maintain the Japanese names. Mm-hmm. But I've always been fascinated by that, the fact that the Japanese they seem to develop facing towards a European kind of look to their characters.
And I think perhaps one of the other issues at hand is also the makeup of the industry itself. Like right now, it probably is still predominantly white guys who work in art and development and those things. And as the development side of things becomes more diverse, maybe the games themselves become more diverse.
Yeah, I think it has to come down to the writing and the artists. Really.
Yeah, and so while I didn't play very much of it because I don't like zombies, a little bit I played of The Walking Dead by Telltale Games.
Oh, yeah.
I thought they did a great job in representing different characters of different backgrounds without like resorting to stereotypes.
Mm-hmm. Which is consistent with the series, what little bit I've seen anyway.
Yeah. So I think this is a huge rabbit hole, and it really is sort of a big topic in gaming at hand. And ultimately, I think just to kind of break it down, is representation important? It's exceedingly important. I mean, speaking as white dudes, we are totally overrepresented. And I love it when I see games and they take someone else who is outside of my existence, and I can actually be those characters and explore their worlds and their problems and kind of see what they're dealing with, and put me outside of my comfort zone. So that's kind of interesting for me. But I understand that for those people who match up to those things, whether you could be potentially a lesbian, or you could be transgendered, or you could be Asian American, or whatever you are that is not represented in games, to actually have someone who fulfills your spot is exceedingly important, because it makes you feel appreciated as a human being, if you feel like you matter.
Right. And if those aspects resonate within you, it makes it more personal.
Yeah. So when you have characters that are done well in that regard, it's definitely not pandering, but if you make a character, it's like, look, we made a lesbian, transgendered, Asian American girl. Look at us, we're awesome and progressive. Sorry, no.
That checks a lot of boxes right there in one character.
You're not.
What about the big enemy in Final Fantasy, was that 5 or 6?
Who's the villain? Which one?
The clownish...
Oh, Kefka.
Kefka, that's the guy. So there's always been these illusions, or these they've always said that they think he's homosexual, right?
I think Kefka is fucking crazy. And that's all you ever need to know about him. Kefka don't care about no genitals. He only cares about genocide.
Not to be used with genital side, which is totally different.
Anyway, we would love to hear your thoughts on this rabbit hole of a subject. I am sure we're going to get all kinds of comments on this one. So please let us know in comments or however. And if you have a question for us, we're out of questions. Send us questions. At our website at GameGrazers.com/discuss. So thank you, Shazel, for that question. And thank you, Andy, as always.
Thank you, Davis. Good discussion.
Yes. Ciao.
Bye.